And we are live, guys. Welcome to another live stream from the Women of High Value channel. My name is Joseph Darling. Today we are taking a random video that I've been given that is basically a woman feminist, I guess, who is ranting on TikTok, and that has been spread on Twitter, blah, blah, blah. I just received it on Twitter. And the person who sent it to me just wanted my reaction to this video. So we're just going to watch it and we'll talk about whatever she's talking about because I have no real idea of what she's talking about. So let's get moving with the video.
Also, just one more thing before I go into work. I'm becoming afraid of my hatred for men. It started as a fun little, you know those TikToks where people are like, don't make jokes about having kinks because your brain doesn't know you're joking, and it actually develops them. I think I joked way too much about hating men, and now I am genuinely, in a sexist way, I hate them. Like, in a way that a white man from Alabama hates black people. I hate men. I walk past them and I want to kill them. And they aren't even doing anything. I just see them and it fills me with rage. I don't know how to stop. It's gone way too far. It consumes me. Also, just one more thing before I go into work.
Okay. Oh, so very interesting what she says there. We could watch it a little bit more. You want to? What's going on here? Okay. First of all, we got to look at the way that men and women have been designed from the very beginning. Okay? Men are masculine or supposed to be masculine, and women are supposed to be feminine. We've been given this planet, this universe of ours, in order for us to figure life out, right? And for us to make it work for us and for the future generations. And there's a reason why there are only two genders, okay? Because there's a duality there that works perfectly when everything is in order. And if we don't play along those universal rules, then there's chaos. Okay, so you guys can choose which one you want, order or chaos. and it's not really about the choice because, and I'll explain why, because this is a channel for women and I'm explaining to women right now what's going on. You guys probably know, you probably have tasted some of that hatred that this woman has for men. Well, first of all, if you understand the background of this channel, let's just briefly explain about masculinity and femininity. When men are masculine, it is not only a turn on, it's an attractive thing for women, all women, including this one who hates men, in terms of when he is masculine. And now we need to define properly what masculinity is, because the people that she hates, men, those are not masculine men, those are feminine men. Okay? It's basically she hates the warped men. Okay? Those are the guys that can't choose sides. And I'll explain now. Masculinity means that a man is consistent. He is integral. He is honest. He thinks big picture and delayed gratification instead of instant gratification. Okay? Men, by nature, are selfish. Yes. And they, by nature, do not care. Yes. Those things can be assets if they're used correctly by these men. That means that if a man is selfish, but he understands the big picture, then he will understand from a wisdom standpoint that if he makes women happy, and if he helps, and if he actually creates win-win situations in his life continuously over a long period of time, that's actually going to create good karma in his life and give him joy, happiness, and everything else in life that he desires. Okay, men desire power. Men desire money. Men are selfish. Men are this, that, and the other, right? But if he gets warped by never growing up, then we get the problem. Because you see, both genders start out feminine. Men don't start out masculine, right? We both genders start out feminine. So we grow up from 0 to 9 years old. Men have the exact same amounts of testosterone and estrogen as girls do in their childhood. But then they begin their sperm production with puberty. This is the good thing. This is a fantastic thing. What ends up happening is that now, by nature of this sperm production, it actually, believe it or not, calms boys down. Listen to what I'm saying. This is legit. Men who develop testosterone become peaceful. They get delayed gratification. They get long-term thinking. They become ambitious. They become desirous of girls, but in a good way, as long as they practice discipline and focus in their lives. You see, if men do not do that, if men start their first addiction of their entire lives, which is ejaculation, masturbation, and porn, this is the addiction that starts early on these days. 30 years ago, it wasn't as much as it is today, as you can understand. So the world, in a sense, is becoming worse from the additions of technology, but it's also becoming massively better because information can be spread faster, right? So there's a dual sword, if you will, a double-edged sword of the bad aspects of internet and the good aspects of internet that has caused things to happen even, exponentially as we speak right now. So men are becoming more and more addicted to porn. What happens when they do that? They become more and more reliant upon instant gratification and addiction and using people for their objectives. Okay? I'm explaining about men right now because men are the problem. You look at women and they are perfect. They're angels. I'm saying this even after having watched this one with you, if they're given the correct environment. Men are able to create this environment, but they have to grow up to create this environment. Women will not be able to create heaven on earth on their own. In fact, they're not going to create it at all. It is men who have the power and the ability to change the situation that we're in right now. Men need to do this. They need to be rewarded for doing this when the good people, the honest guys, the integral guys are doing what they're supposed to do. The problem is that we have too many guys now growing up feminine because of not having strong father figures in their lives, not being taught discipline at an early age. And I'm not talking early age now, childhood years, because then they're feminine. You can't practice discipline when you're 7 years old. And if you do, you're going to remain feminine for the long term. We need to allow boys to get their childhood and have fun in their childhood and not be forced to grow up too quickly. Because if they grow up too quickly, they want to remain in their childhood forever. That's bad. We want boys to grow up and become men and become integral, honest, and being able to create win-win situations in every single thing that they do. So, a masculine man is going to be consistent. He's going to be ambitious. And he's going to think in the long term and not just this life. A masculine man understands that there's life thereafter and that there's a continual aspect to his growth. And if he understands this, he understands that every single action or behavior or emotion that he has will create ring effects on the world around him. If he is a bad person, this is the result. Women feeling like this about men. Okay? So, now that we've spoken about men and that the goal is for them to become masculine and we need to encourage them to become masculine, and there's no such thing as toxic masculinity. Toxic masculinity is hybridism. Is men who are striving to be masculine, but they're feminine because they act in terms of instant gratification. They want to have casual sexual relationships. They drink. They smoke. They fight. Like with each other in a bad way. Okay, I don't have anything against like martial arts and boxing and stuff that like where guys are practicing to protect women and children. But men who can't control themselves and start bar fights, for example, that's ridiculous. That's femininity at its finest in men. So when men are feminine, you get issues. Now, I'm saying that feminine, and when I say that, you're like, yeah, but the most feminine guys, the problem is those in the middle. Those that choose a side. Like, you have guys who are like basically having a facade of they're masculine, they're macho, but then they're feminine on the inside. You understand? Like, the fact that they can't control their thoughts, their emotions, and their behaviors is them being feminine. But when you get like homosexuals and guys who are actually accepting of their homosexuality and they embrace it, well, they're a problem. It is a problem. But they also are not as bad for society as those guys that are warped in the middle there that don't decide on a side. Does that make sense? Like, because if you're warped in the middle, then you haven't figured yourself out yet. Homosexuals have chosen a side and they've chosen to stay there. The bad thing about them, and that's for another video, another day, is that they have exempted themselves from the responsibility of providing for women and protecting women. That's bad. Okay? So that's their selfishness is erupted in the sense of, I will take care of me and I will take care of the one that I love if he's in a, long-term relationship, but he has exempted himself from the responsibility of women and children. That's feminine. A masculine man will take upon himself responsibility because he understands that in order for him to get power, ultimate power, he has to take upon himself responsibility. He has to take the blame for whatever happens in his life. He has to create extreme ownership in his life. We need more men like that. So what do we have here? Well, we've got a woman who has had very negative experiences in her childhood and in her teenage years with, you guessed it, guys. Okay? And this has started from an early childhood. I could probably promise you. Okay, I don't know this woman. I have no idea, but she probably did not have a father in her life. And if she did, he was warped and caused a lot of distress in her life. Okay? Whether it was from abuse, whether it was domestic abuse, sexual abuse, whatever it is, there's some really deeply rooted things in this woman, and basically all the other feminists out there who are hardcore feminists, they've had some really bad experiences with men in the past. And because they've had these experiences in the past, you got to understand that that creates a massive burden on these women. A burden that causes them to not trust men at all. At all. Because they hear continuous stories. Because you got to understand, burdened women, who do they spend time with? Do they spend time with unburdened women? Do they spend time with guys? Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, or do they spend time with burdened women who are kind of like themselves? We enjoy the company of those that are like us. And we very often create our own echo chamber of what we have experienced and what we are experiencing. So she has created for herself a network of people, feminists, whose fault it's not theirs, right? It's not their fault, none of their fault, because it's men's fault. Men have created a horrific environment for women, and now women are basically experiencing this, and their emotions are spilling over from the bad experiences that they've had. Not only their own experiences that they've had, but the experiences that other women in their network, of their friends, have had. And they hear story upon story upon story upon story of jerks, of douchebags, of toxic masculinity, of guys who are screwing over women and not caring, being completely selfish. This is what's happening inside her brain, is that she does not understand men. Okay? There's two different aspects. Femininity is to seek first to be understood, and once she is understood, or once femininity is understood, then they seek to understand, right? Seeking to be understood means, by nature, burdened. So if you haven't felt understood yet, you are burdened, right? Until someone comes along and listens to you and hears your problems and say, wow, thank you so much for telling your story. Wow. Like, that's not your fault. That was horrific. I completely understand. And then they sob together, and she begins to feel understood. When she feels understood, she begins to seek to understand others, right? Well, guess what? This woman is massively burdened and has not had anyone, at least no guys, no men, that have basically apologized on behalf of men, right? And all of her past experiences. She does not have a trustworthy man in her life who she can give all of the crap to and all of the trash to that has happened to her throughout her life. And because she cannot do that, and she hasn't received that yet, she still is seeking to be understood. And now, because this emotion is being suppressed, right? Because she's suppressing it. She has to suppress it because these are really, really dark thoughts. You think that this is dark? This is only the beginning of what women are going to feel over the next few decades. Because the world is not going to... It's going to get worse before it gets better. It is going to get better, though. We got to have hope. And I know that there's hope at the end of the tunnel because we understand what we understand now. If you're part of this channel, there's hope. Because the world is amazing. People are amazing. 95% of people are simply... They're doing their very best with what they know. Well, guess what? The guys who has screwed her over and all of her friends and all of her network and all of the people that she watches on the news or on social media, those guys are ignorant, right? They cause hate in women, but they're ignorant of the things that they're doing, or they're ignorant of the consequences of their actions. Just like the guy that I was, the video I made on Manify Value channel a couple of days ago with Hafiz, that the guy was, saying that you should date women while you level up, like for guys. And I thought that was absolutely horrific, to use women to practice on while you become a better person. No, you become a worse person if you use women for your long-term objectives. Use them. Every person you meet is an end in and of themselves. They're not means to an end. Every single individual are ends in itself. So they need to be treated with care, with love, and with understanding. And men very often don't do that. But it's because they're ignorant. Right? Forgive them, for they know not what they do. Literally. But it's their responsibility to not be ignorant. It is not your responsibility as a woman to educate them. This is education enough. But very often the guys who suck, blame. They blame women. And they don't seek to understand them first. I explained femininity seeks to be understood first and then seeks to understand. Well, this works the other way around for masculinity. Masculinity suppresses emotions in order for him to, or for her, if she's masculine, I'm explaining masculinity. Masculinity seeks to understand first, because there's obviously a misunderstanding here. Something's not right. I'll seek to understand first. More information creates inspiration. Now you seek to be understood. There's a win-win situation there. You see that? And guys, when they're feminine, they're going to seek to be understood first. Or worse, not gonna care if you understand and just leave. And screw women over. You see that? So, what's my point with this video? My point with this video is that men have the power to change the situation, but we've got to take the blame. And that's why this channel needs to be spread to as many men as possible, so that they understand that if they only take the blame, and they can't take the blame for the whole world immediately right now, even though that's what I say that men should do, right? If you practice extreme ownership, I look at the world and I see that this person who has cancer, that's my fault. It's my fault. That makes me feel bad, but it doesn't make me feel bad to the point that I can't do anything about it. However, I won't do anything about it if that's not my first priority. I have to first take care of home first. I have to take care of business first, because I won't be able to have capacity to take care of millions of people who have cancer right now at this instant. I don't have capacity for that. So as a masculine man, I prioritize, but it's still my fault. A beggar, it's still my fault. Anything that's negative around the world, it's my fault. Because as a masculine man, he takes extreme ownership, but he prioritizes. And he chooses the things that are most important first, and he neglects everything else. He has to do that, or else he won't be able to save everyone in the long run. Does that make sense? That's masculinity in a nutshell. We need to encourage men to think in those ways. But they won't do that if there's no reward at the end of the tunnel. If having a family very often these days suck, if marriage very often these days screws men over and takes half of their money and makes life horrible for them, then men are not going to rise up and become men of high value and, have the motivation to support and provide and protect for women and children. Only the ones that are not ignorant will take that responsibility. But we want all men to do that. So there needs to be a system in place where men are massively rewarded for honesty, integrity, for doing the things that are right, and progressing humanity and society to a better level, to a higher standard of life, so that we can create heaven on earth. Right? Because the moment we do that, imagine if a guy had entered into her life. I'm just saying, this is going to be very difficult for any man to do. But, and in many ways, we have to focus on the next generation. But because the ones that are here right now, it's very difficult to change women that have gotten in those thought patterns about men. She really, literally hates men. The only way, but as an example, what would need to happen for her is for her to suddenly have a man appear in her life who actually treats her the right way, who she can actually depend upon, who she can actually trust, no matter what, that she can get unconditional love from. Really, that's what she needs. Because if she could get that, then she'd be like, wow, at least there's one man that's different. And then that will change her thought patterns a little bit. And then she'll be like, maybe there are more guys like this. Maybe there's 2. Maybe there's 5. Maybe there's 10. And then her network might improve over time, right? Because she's going to be part of an environment where this guy is, and this guy is only in good environments, right? Where there's honesty, where there's no lies, where there's no screwing women over, where children are not being abused, where this, that, and the other. Do you understand? She will become part of a new network once she joins this guy. He's going to have to dig deep in order to solve her baggage, obviously. But in the long run, he's the only one that can change her environment. But once he does change her environment, like a small itty bit of hope is established in her heart. And if that hope can just get, it's a sliver of light, because there's so much darkness there right now. She can't get this out on her own, guys. She can't. And you as a woman watching this, if you have a lot of darkness, someone needs to receive it. Someone needs to take that crap and throw it out and know that you are perfect, that you're an angel, that it's not your fault, that it's a part of your environment. And the more mainstream we make this feminist movement, the worse it gets, right? Like, that's kind of what I want you guys to understand here, is that's the world we live in today. But it can become so much better if men simply take the responsibility and get rewarded for taking responsibility. That's the whole point. Let's see if there's anything else I can do here. Thank you so much for watching, by the way. This is, I hope that you get a lot out of this video. But I think we'll just simply end there. Thank you so much for watching. You guys are absolutely awesome, amazing. And I'll see you again in the next one.